Sign up today for a 7-day free trial at alerts.chartguys.com. Hey everyone, checking in on the cryptocurrency space. Before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit and actually want to hear back from any of you that have experience trading. I think the ticker is MOVE, M-O-V-E. Alex over at Nuggets News has been talking about this trading instrument, which is essentially a volatility measurement where when Bitcoin is in an equilibrium and getting really tight, the price goes down in this instrument, and when it breaks in either direction, the volatility causes the price to go up. So they have that for the S&P 500. It's the VIX, but there's a lot more that goes into it. So I'm curious. I can't really pull up a chart on it here on TradingView, and I want to back test it and to be able to see what the price movement was in that instrument when different breaks occurred in Bitcoin, if I'm going to be putting money on it. But it's certainly an instrument that does interest me. So I'm curious if any of you have used it and your experiences with it, because one thing that we are good at is recognizing tightening ranges and anticipating when those tightening ranges are set to break. So let me know in the comments, please. So looking at Bitcoin, and also thanks to Alex for pointing that out. So Bitcoin on the daily time frame, the bounce has not really gotten going yet. And what I mean by that is every single day is still a lower high. So we're now on day number 9 in a row of a lower high every day. The RSI, however, did cool off a little bit with the green candlestick yesterday. It's the close of the candlestick comparative to the open that determines what the RSI does on that candlestick. And it went up slightly. It went from 20 to pretty much went up 3.5 points. So we're still oversold. And if we do break to lower lows below 7,712, we will still see the daily RSI down in the teens. And I will still be interested in scaling in further position. But that short-term bounce does make me a little bit more cautious. The 12-hour RSI cooled off significantly as well. So not much about my game plan changes, but I did take profit on one position. At this point, I got one fill on Bitcoin at 78.11. I'm still sitting in that position and comfortably profitable. If we drop back down to lower lows, I will add in the mid to lower $7,000 range as long as the daily RSI is this beat up. So Ethereum, I did sell, and we'll go over that in just a second. So looking at Bitcoin, the 4-hour time frame, we haven't changed the trend yet in any meaningful way. We've just seen lower highs. This wasn't really much of a bounce. We never broke the lower high every candle pattern. So I'm still considering it that we haven't had a clear 4-hour trend change yet. And I'm looking down at 78.61 and 77.12 as supports. The most important resistance is 82.90, and then we're looking up at 84.64. And then 86.59. We need to get over these 4-hour exponential resistances. We need to see them cross bullish, and we need them to become support if we're going to zoom out to the daily and look for our daily lower high to be set on this bounce. So why did I sell Ethereum? Number one, to lock in profit when I had it. So I got one fill at 155.15 or something along those lines. And my sell order that I placed, because I'm not at the computer as often these days as I'm traveling as I would be normally. So I placed those orders, it got filled, and I sold at 173.89. So that's a 12% trade. If you give me a 12% profitable position when we're in a daily downtrend and I'm trading against the trend, I'm going to lock that in every time. If it keeps going up and I leave 10% on the table, I can very easily console myself about that. Because again, if you're up 12% playing against the trend, the odds are that those gains are not going to last very long. And the other thing is the RSI started cooling off. So we already bounced, and we're looking for that daily lower high now. So anything under 224 is a daily lower high that can form anywhere. We have the daily exponential resistances to be watching. But the bottom line is when the RSI cools off enough and the gain is significant enough, I'm going to lock that in every time against the trend. I would let that trade play out longer if I were going with the trend, but obviously that's not the case in the recent scenario. So the 4-hour time frame for Ethereum did have a clear trend change. This is a clear higher low and higher high. We are still trying to see a bull cross of the exponential moving averages on the 4-hour time frame. Anything above 161.19 is a higher low on the 4-hour chart. There's no real bear volume on this current consolidation. So the bulls can say as long as 161.19 holds, they still have that 4-hour uptrend. We're certainly going to have to see Bitcoin start its daily bounce and make its way to the mid $8,000 range if this Ethereum bounce is going to see continuation. If Bitcoin drops down under 77, we're going to see Ethereum drop back down on the daily, and I would expect we would hold 152, the low, just because of how much space the bulls have to work with, but we could very easily drop back down to even the low 160s or 150s if Bitcoin has not bottomed yet, and this current pullback on Bitcoin is getting a little bit more notable. Want to see if we're going to form a 12-hour equilibrium. It's not the setup. Daily inside bar is getting more and more likely with how the morning is shaping up. So why did Ethereum bounce so much stronger than Bitcoin? And this is the reason that when I'm playing oversold bounces, I like to choose Bitcoin for one position, and I choose another coin for my second position. The reason is diversification, because I know that either Bitcoin's going to bounce stronger than Ethereum and Litecoin, or Ethereum and Litecoin are going to bounce stronger than Bitcoin. In this instance, the ETH BTC chart saw a great bounce. This is why Ethereum was so much stronger, and this is why my Ethereum position was up 12%. We're at the top of the bull move for Bitcoin. My Bitcoin position was up, maybe 7% or so. So that's a big difference. But this ETH BTC chart is setting up for an equilibrium. We have our high. Size of the pullback was significant enough that we would look for a lower high to form compared to 223. That may be set now. Need a little bit more pullback for us to be confident in that. But then we would look to pull back and look for a higher low. So just to compare this to the move instrument that I talked about first thing, if there were a move instrument to measure the volatility of ETH BTC, the price would start to be going down right now. And it would go down as long as we stay in a tightening range, and we would anticipate that it would be going down in this tightening range. And then when it breaks, the price would go up. So daily equilibrium is anticipated for ETH BTC. The bulls have a lot of space before that low of 152. But if this pullback starts happening and we look for a daily higher low and Bitcoin breaks bearish, we could see, like I said, Ethereum head back to its low or close to its low. Litecoin's bounce is the same as Bitcoin as far as not very strong. The RSI cooled off a little bit. It's right at oversold. Multiple daily inside bars are forming. 4 hour struggling to get over exponential resistance. Resistance here was 56.53, and we cleared that level with no follow through. So that's a clear 4 hour trend change. Again, Bitcoin doesn't have a clear one for me, but Ethereum and Litecoin do. But this Litecoin 4 hour trend change has no follow through right now. So if we were to zoom out, as we know, trend changes with the lack of follow through means caution of a bear flag. And I can't really find a time frame. You could call this 8 hour time frame a bear flag. Can't find a time frame where it clearly stands out as a textbook bear flag. Perhaps the 16-hour chart here. But the bottom line is I know to be keeping an eye out for something like a bear flag because of what the shorter term price action is doing. So Litecoin right now weak, and I haven't looked at the LTC BTC chart before starting this video, but I know when I look at this chart, the bulls are not going to be doing anything here. So on the daily time frame, weak little bounce attempt, and this looks like a potential daily bear flag. This size of a pullback with this much of a bounce on declining bull volume, we may be headed back down towards this recent low. 4 hour time frame, weak bounce, didn't change that trend. It's a 4 hour equilibrium. So this is worth watching if you're trading Litecoin. We have the low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low, lower high, and we're heading down towards support. Most important support right now is 6699. Bulls have to hold that level to remain in the 4 hour equilibrium. XRP USD is seeing multiple inside bars as well. It's more in line with what Litecoin and Bitcoin are currently doing. 4 hour time frame, unable to see any kind of real follow through. 2507 is the highest price of this move. If the bulls cannot break 2507, they're not going anywhere. Support is 234 and 228. So heading down towards that support and potentially going to be tested today. And we'll see if the daily inside bar can maintain one more day. If it does, we know we have a nice tight range forming and a break will be imminent into tomorrow. And that may be the case for Bitcoin as well. If Bitcoin bulls can hold 78.61, we'll anticipate a daily inside bar likely to form today. Binance is still extremely weak as well. We saw a leg down when the Bitcoin bear break on the weekly time frame occurred, and now this bounce trying to take place is weak, and it is in line with everybody that we just looked at aside from Ethereum. Again, Ethereum is the shining star out of these names as far as a successful, significant bounce, whereas everybody else is still kind of struggling and still not confident that that bounce is going to take place at this point. We know it will eventually, but we may have to see one more leg down in Bitcoin. 1642 is our top, little double top, 1640, 1642, and the support levels, we're watching these 4 hour little higher lows, 1470 and 1425. At this point for Binance, monthly equilibrium is the very most likely scenario. The size of the pullback, certainly significant. We're going to look for a higher low to form. Just keeping in mind that that can happen anywhere between 14, we could go down to 10, we could go down to 8. So there's no sign of a bottom at this point, but we know that when that bottom does form, we will look for a significant percentage gain, and I would say probably an easy 50% gain when the monthly higher low is found before we find that monthly lower high. Let's say this were the bottom, the move back up to 21, let's just draw that out, would be a 15 or a 50% move, and it would be our low, high. If that were our higher low, which again, there's no sign of that being the case, but we would have to go to there to see a 50% move. So watch for that monthly higher low in Binance, because that equilibrium is the most likely scenario in my opinion, and the first signal that that monthly higher low will be set is going to be a daily trend change. And obviously there's no sign of a daily trend change at this point. Even when we do get a bounce going, we will just be looking for a daily lower high. We can also be watching for the potential of the bull cross of the 12 and 26 period moving average, which has been bearish since the all-time high. But if that bull cross takes place, that can also be a signal that our monthly higher low has likely been set. So bigger picture, tightening ranges on a lot of time frames here, or I should say on one time frame, the daily for Bitcoin, Litecoin, and XRP. We've got ETH with a clear lead bull, but ETH probably going to give some of that leadership back as we pull back within this ETH BTC chart, and expecting a break of these inside bars if they do form. We'll expect that break tomorrow. If it's a bear break on Bitcoin, we're going to head back down and test the lows. I've got orders. I'm fine with my 78 average, and I will add to that with orders in the mid to low $7,000 range. And if it's a bull break, we then look for the daily lower high to be set in the mid to upper $8,000 range. And bears are going to be waiting for that. Like I said in the last video, if you are looking for a bearish entry at this point, ideally you want to be looking for a daily lower high to form to be comfortable. So there are going to be a lot of bears looking for that daily lower high to be set once this bounce does get some follow through, which it has not at this point. So hope you have a good rest of your weekend. I'll continue to check in as activity permits in the space and as my time permits. Do good things out there, and we'll see you soon.